There is a new article that says that the Washington Commanders could trade Terry McLaurin to the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for superstar edge rusher TJ Watt. I will react to that article at the top of today's edition of the Commanders Report. Then we'll get into the developmental plan for first-round rookie Josh Conerly Jr., which was revealed by ESPN's Washington Commanders reporter earlier this week. And then we'll finish up today's show with Deebo Samuel's elite trait that I think makes him the perfect fit for Cliff Kingsbury's offense heading into the 2025 season. Before we get into the content today, I want to give a big shout out to Melvin Johnson Sr. He put in a $2 super chat, super thanks, I should say, on a video that we posted last week. So I wanted to give a big shout out to the even small donation here. We do appreciate when you guys send in those super thanks. And if you guys want a shout out on a future edition of the Commanders Report, you guys can send in a super thanks below this video. Doesn't matter the dollar amount. It could be $1, $2, $5, $10, even $20. If you guys appreciate what we do here at the Commanders Report and you want to send us a little bit of a tip, it's that button that looks like the heart sign with the money symbol in the middle. If you guys want to send in a donation, we greatly appreciate it, and you might even get a shout out on a future edition of the Commanders Report. All right, so let's get into this crazy blockbuster trade idea from Fox Sports' David Helman, where he threw out the idea of the Commanders acquiring TJ Watt in exchange for Terry McLaurin, and what would be the kind of trade of the offseason, I would say, if this actually went down. But this is what David had to say in his article as to why it could happen. If Washington were to trade Terry McLaurin, they'd be opening some financial wiggle room to add another lucrative player. They could get at least 2, if not 3 years of play out of Watt before they have to worry about extending Jayden Daniels. They definitely need the pass rush help. Watt would give Dan Quinn a blue-chip player, which he doesn't really have right now on his Commanders' defense. So listen, guys, if Pittsburgh is willing to come to the table and they're willing to trade TJ Watt, even for a guy like Terry McLaurin, and let's say Terry's asking for like $35, $36 million per season, Justin Jefferson level money, I would certainly think about it, guys. I really, really would, because you look at TJ Watt, like he has been probably the most valuable defensive player in football since he was drafted back in 2017. Since being drafted, he has 108 sacks. That is first in the National Football League, even over Myles Garrett by quite a margin, actually. I think it's like 6.5 sacks above him. Then tackles for loss as a run defender. He's first in the NFL since he was drafted in TFLs with 126, so he's an impact as a run defender as well. And then where I think Watt is actually most valuable for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and why I think he has been the most valuable defensive player in football, and arguably still is the turnover production that he has. There has not been a player in the National Football League that has caused more turnovers for their football team than TJ Watt has since 2017. A whopping 40 forced fumbles plus interceptions since the 2017 season. And then the next 13 names on the list are all defensive backs, and he's 5 ahead of this number 2 player on that list in Justin Simmons. Okay, so Watt is just in a completely different category when it comes to edge rushers in the National Football League in terms of the impact that he gives to a defense. And by the way, he's still showing that kind of production. Last year, even though he was injured for the final 3 games of the year, okay, he was still finished 8th in sacks with 11.5. He was tied for first in TFLs with 40, and he was first by a wide margin, all right? He led the NFL in forced fumbles by 8, okay? Like, that is just an insane number, seeing a player get double-digit forced fumbles during a season, okay? That is absolutely unheard of, which is why Watt was the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year before he got injured late in the 2024 season. Then, if you get TJ Watt in a trade, like if you need to replace Terry McLaurin, there's still a guy like Amari Cooper, who 2 seasons ago was a bona fide number 1 receiver in this league, still has great size, great, possibly even elite foot speed, really good route running chops, and he doesn't have the best ball skills in the world, but certainly good enough. I would take Watt and Amari Cooper any day of the week, all right? I really would. But with that being said, I really doubt this trade is a possibility. It's a fun thing to kind of throw out there and kind of think of, and if I'm the Commanders and this is actually a possibility and Terry McLaurin's asking for too much money, this is certainly something that I would think about, because TJ could make this defense, overnight from like maybe an average group to an above average group to potentially even top 10 unit in the National Football League with just his presence on the defensive line here in Washington. The first reason why I think that this probably isn't a likely possibility here, guys, is that the Steelers aren't going to let go of Watt. For all the reasons that we talked about, Watt's been so valuable for their defense that there's just no way that they're going to let him leave, especially in a season where they're bringing in Aaron Rodgers for one season to try and do what the Buccaneers did with Tom Brady, win a Super Bowl in one season with an aging quarterback. And you guys can see here with TJ Watt, the impact is immense. All right, the Steelers lose 90% of their games when Watt isn't on the field, whereas they win 2/3 of their games when he is on the field. There's like a 14-point swing when you take into account points per game for the Steelers and opponent points per game for their defense when he's on the field versus off the field, and the sacks per game and turnovers per game take a huge dip as well. And if you think that that is kind of an outdated number, just take a look at the impact last year before TJ Watt's ankle injury versus after his injury. The Steelers didn't win a freaking football game last year after he got injured. That just goes to show you how valuable TJ Watt is, and you guys can see in those same numbers, it's the same kind of drastic shift when TJ Watt is not making the kind of impact he is used to making for the Steelers defense. So the Steelers really don't have any kind of incentive to let him go, and I do think they will end up extending him this offseason. And the truth of the matter is, guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers need TJ Watt more than they need Terry McLaurin. They already made a big wide receiver trade this offseason with DK Metcalf. They have a couple of younger receivers that they like in Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III. TJ Watt might be the most valuable player. In fact, there's no might, all right? He is the most valuable player on that Steelers team, and if they trade him away, I would say their chances of winning a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers go down from where they are already at. And then the second thing here, guys, is I don't think the Commanders want to trade Terry McLaurin either. We have covered this extensively on this show, or like the Commanders are trying to win now, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers are, and the Commanders, I should say, are in a position here where Terry McLaurin is their bona fide number one receiver, and if he's not in this room, they don't have a number one receiver. I like Deebo Samuel. We're going to talk about him later in today's show and why I think he's the perfect gadget wide receiver weapon type of player in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, but you need somebody that you can trust as your number one alpha type receiver in this offense if you're going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And if you let go of him, you don't have that anymore. So personally, guys, I don't think that either team is going to come to the table on this potential deal. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. If you're the Washington Commanders and the Pittsburgh Steelers are offering you TJ Watt in exchange for Terry McLaurin, would you trade and pay Watt in this scenario? Type A for accept or D for decline. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, we're going to be talking about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics here, go ahead down there in the comment section and let me know if you accept or decline this trade. And we're going to be talking about Deebo Samuel a little bit later in today's show, guys. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends at Fanatics here, where they got Deebo Samuel jerseys at a great price on their website right now. When you go to chatsports.com/Deebo, that is our special link that's down there in the comments and description of today's show. You click that link and you make a purchase, and Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds to help us out with our channel. That helps us keep the lights on. That helps us pay rent in our studio. All right, that does all the different stuff to help pay for this entire operation, where we give you guys free Commanders content every single day. So if you want to help out the channel, you're already planning on getting a Deebo Samuel jersey, and you want to help us out as well, you can go chatsports.com/Deebo to make that happen. Now let's talk about first-round pick out of Oregon, offensive tackle Josh Conerly Jr. And ESPN's John Keim says that the plan for the Commanders is to play him at right tackle in the short term, but the long-term plan is that he's eventually going to replace Laramie Tunsil as this team's starting left tackle. Keim said this in a recent ESPN article. The Commanders are excited about Conerly. The belief is that he could move to left tackle down the road. For now, though, Conerly will play right tackle. They have not handed him the starting job. He worked mostly with the second group in the spring, but his footwork and ability to play in space and move on pulling action makes the team confident. It's hard to accurately gauge an offensive lineman until the pads come on in practice, but his movement skills impressed. And that's exactly what I heard coming out of Commanders OTAs this year, guys. And I think Connerly is going to be very good at right tackle. I really like that you are solidifying the 2 tackle positions this offseason. It was a major issue for this team, and it frankly has been a major issue for this team for many seasons. So the fact that you trade for Laramie Tunsil, one of the best pass-protecting left tackles in the game, and then you draft a guy in Josh Connerly Jr. who's a really good, I think he's going to be a day one ready right tackle in this league. I think, fortifies this position for at least the next 2 years. But there's a question here. Should the Washington Commanders' plan really be to start Connerly's career at right tackle and then force him to pretty much learn a whole new position at left tackle and flip sides after 2 years of right tackle reps? I think that there is certainly an argument to be made that they shouldn't do that, because after 2 seasons playing on the right, he's going to be used to playing on that side, and moving him over to the left risks having him not play as well when you move him over to the left side. And, it will be 2 years because Tunsil is under contract for 2 years on his current contract. So at the very minimum here, unless there's like a career-ending injury for Laramie Tunsil this year, which God forbid, let's hope that doesn't happen, Connerly's going to be playing on the right side for 2 whole seasons before he would be moving over to the left side. And he would have to, if you listen to offensive linemen who have made this change, they say it's so weird to start. It's like wiping with the other hand is what a lot of guys like to say. And, that's tough, all right? Some guys don't make that adjustment. So my take on this whole situation, guys, is that if Connerly is really thriving at right tackle, let's say he's one of the best right tackles in football, and then Tunsil leaves after 2 years, I wouldn't move him off of right tackle. Nowadays, a lot of top edge rushers are lining up against the right tackle because most teams have their best pass protector at left tackle. So a lot of teams and defenses put their best edge rusher against the right tackle because they're not as good as pass protectors, and it gives their edge rushers more opportunities to get to the passer. But you look at some of the best teams in the league with the best offensive lines, teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson, one of the best tackles period in the National Football League, is a true right tackle. So if Connerly's really thriving there on the right side these first 2 years, I wouldn't even think about moving him over to the left. I would get somebody else to replace Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. I'm open to the idea of Connerly moving over to the left side, especially if he's just okay, or if he struggles on the right side to start his NFL career. But I think there's certainly an argument to be made that if he thrives at right tackle, he's one of the best in the league at that spot, that you really shouldn't move him off of that spot. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Should it be Washington's plan to eventually move Connerly to left tackle eventually? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section to let me know what you guys think about this potential possibility. And then we'll finish up today's show here with our last topic of discussion, where, there's a lot of people out there that call Deebo Samuel fat, that say that he is no longer a good wide receiver. They call him washed, and they think he's not going to be productive with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Part of the reason for that is because of the production that he had in San Francisco last year, where he only had 670 yards in a season where Brandon Ayuk went down around midway through the year, and Deebo did not really step up in a big way as that team's number one wide receiver. Guys like Jawan Jennings and even tight end George Kittle was out-receiving Deebo Samuel in that San Francisco offense last year. So there's a lot of people out there that are saying Deebo is done. He can't bounce back. His career is over. But what you guys need to realize about a guy like Deebo Samuel is that he's just not your run-of-the-mill wide receiver, right? He's not a route runner type. He's not somebody that's going to burn you deep down the field on a 9 route and moss you down the sideline. That's just not the type of player that he is. He's less of like a true wide receiver and more of an offensive weapon that needs to be utilized in creative ways. Kyle Shanahan did a really good job of that in San Francisco, but I also think Cliff Kingsbury is going to do a great job of that here in Washington. And Deebo's elite trait that Cliff Kingsbury needs to do a good job utilizing here in Washington is his run after the catch ability, the rack ability, because there's nobody in football that is better at the wide receiver position at that than Deebo Samuel, all right? Over the last 5 seasons, including last year when apparently he was completely terrible, he led the entire NFL in yards after the catch per reception for the San Francisco 49ers. So he's one of the more elite screen wide receivers in the league. He's one of the best short area targets in the league. And then when you get him going on a dig route and you get him the ball in space in that intermediate level of the field and you give him a head of steam, he is so difficult to bring down. All right, so Deebo, that is what Cliff Kingsbury needs to do with him in this offense, is get him the ball out in space and let Deebo do Deebo things. And the good news is, I think Cliff Kingsbury showed last year that he's more than capable of utilizing his players and his talents and the guys with their strengths to be able to make these guys into the best versions of themselves and put them in a position where they can succeed. So I think that's very good news for Washington Commanders fans, is that I trust Cliff Kingsbury, who I do think is probably going to get a head coaching job, unfortunately, with another team next offseason. I trust him to go out there and use Deebo in the right way. Use him on wide receiver screens. Get creative with the way that you use him in pre-snap motion with orbit and jet sweep motions. You can also get him the ball in those intermediate dig routes that Jayden Daniels is so good at hitting. We saw that with Noah Brown last year, and Noah's going to be playing a slightly different role this year, but Deebo's going to be somebody that does some things that this offense absolutely needs to get done, and I think that it's going to be a very irreplaceable type of role in this offense. So I'm really excited to see what Deebo Samuel's going to do this year, but let me know, over or under? Will Deebo Samuel get over or under 1,000 scrimmage yards, so that's receiving plus rushing yards, for the Commanders offense this year? He got close last year. He got about 930 scrimmage yards last year for San Francisco. So type O for over or U for under. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for daily and free Commanders updates right here on YouTube.